Hi, everyone. Welcome to Daily Dictation. This week, we are looking at the topic of friendships and social relationships at a high intermediate level. This is an interactive activity video to help you practice your English skills. You'll need a piece of paper and a pencil or a blank document to type into for these videos because you are going to be working on practicing your writing skills and your listening skills. You are going to do that by listening to 5 sentences, and you are going to write down the sentences exactly how you hear them by applying the correct spelling, grammar, punctuation, and capitalization. After you write down the 5 sentences, I will show you the answers and you can compare them and see where you made errors. I'm going to be explaining some different tips and tricks to help you spell things more easily, and tips that will help you apply these spelling kind of rules and habits to other words that aren't in this video. And I'm also going to explain some of the grammar in this video so you can know how to apply it in your own writing. Lastly, I'll show you a list of high intermediate level vocabulary that would be extremely important if you're looking at doing a proficiency exam like IELTS, TOEFL, CELPIP, or anything like that, because it shows the examiner that you have advanced vocabulary and you know how to use it. Let's get started. For this activity of being able to write things down accurately after only listening a couple of times, well, it's best to be developed and mastered if you practice it every day. So on this channel, I have new sentences each weekday, new topics each week, and 2 English levels offered. Now the instructions for the actual activity. You will need a blank piece of paper and a pencil or a blank document that you can type into. 5 sentences will be read. Each sentence will be read 3 times and 1 more time at the end. You have to write down each sentence as you hear it, and you will use your listening skills. Try your best to apply the correct spelling, punctuation, and capitalization for each sentence. Now, as you can see on the screen, there are numbers 1 through 5. Each number represents a different sentence that I will read. I'm going to start with sentence number 1. Number 1. Although her empathy helped her understand her friend's struggles, her supportive nature encouraged him to seek help. Although her empathy helped her understand her friend's struggles, her supportive nature encouraged him to seek help. Although her empathy helped her understand her friend's struggles, her supportive nature encouraged him to seek help. Although her empathy helped her understand her friend's struggles, her supportive nature encouraged him to seek help. Number 2. His trustworthiness made it easy for others to rely on him, and he formed a strong fellowship with others. His trustworthiness made it easy for others to rely on him, and he formed a strong fellowship with others. His trustworthiness made it easy for others to rely on him, and he formed a strong fellowship with others. Number 3. She felt an affectionate bond with her mentor, who provided valuable mentorship throughout her career. She felt an affectionate bond with her mentor, who provided valuable mentorship throughout her career. She felt an affectionate bond with her mentor, who provided valuable mentorship throughout her career. Number 4. The community demonstrated solidarity during the crisis as neighbors supported one another with kindness. The community demonstrated solidarity during the crisis as neighbors supported one another with kindness. The community demonstrated solidarity during the crisis as neighbors supported one another with kindness. Number 5. While the acquaintances Number 5. While the acquaintance was friendly, it lacked trustworthiness and empathy. While the acquaintance was friendly, it lacked trustworthiness and empathy. While the acquaintance was friendly, it lacked trustworthiness and empathy. Now I'm going to read each sentence one more time, starting with sentence number 1. Although her empathy helped her understand her friend's struggles, her supportive nature encouraged him to seek help. Number 2. His trustworthiness made it easy for others to rely on him, and he formed a strong fellowship with others. Number 3. She felt an affectionate bond with her mentor, who provided valuable mentorship throughout her career. Number 4. The community demonstrated solidarity during the crisis as neighbors supported one another with kindness. Number 5. While the acquaintance was friendly, it lacked trustworthiness and empathy. So those are all of our sentences. I'm sure everybody did a great job writing them down. Let's get ready to check out the answers. If you found that this video was a little bit too fast and hard to catch, I recommend that you listen again, but at a slower speed by adjusting the playback speed in the settings of the video. If you just need to listen to specific sentence numbers again and don't need to adjust the speed, just have a look at the description for timestamps, and then that will take you to when in the video each sentence was read. If you feel like you're ready to check the answers, let's go ahead and do that. We're going to start with sentence number 1. Although her empathy helped her understand her friend's struggles, her supportive nature encouraged him to seek help. So here we clearly have two clauses in the sentence. So we have one clause here, and then after the comma, we have another clause down here. The first clause starts with a conjunction. And this information doesn't make a lot of sense by itself. Plus, in the middle of the sentence, we have subject, verb, object over here. Because we have that structure there, we know that probably before the subject in the middle here, her subject is her supportive nature. That's the subject. Because we have the subject there in the middle, we know that we should probably continue on with the subject verb. That can be really tricky in this sentence because we have a lot of instances where we have her and the supportive nature. So then we have to actually look at the message in the entire clauses. So although her empathy helped her understand her friend's struggles, this is all one thought and one idea. Her supportive nature encouraged him to seek help. This is a separate thought and idea. So the process behind understanding her friend's struggles is one thing, and her friend actually being encouraged to seek help is another thing. So in a lot of sentences, it is enough to just look at and say, okay, we do have a subject, verb, and an object. And so now we know that because we have this coming up in the middle of the sentence, that probably is another clause. But because here it's really hard because of the repetitive nature of her understand, her French struggles, her supportive nature, her empathy. We have a lot of the same kind of patterns coming, so it's hard to differentiate when one clause stops and one clause starts because there's so many different things. So you actually have to look at the actual full idea and message as a whole in this case, which makes this particular one pretty hard. So after this clause, because we're starting with conjunction, we know it's a dependent clause. They're at the beginning. Because it's a dependent clause first and then the independent clause comes second, then we know that we need a comma here. We have some tricky words here. Although is a tricky word. You should split it in half. Although. And how you split up this word is up to you. Make sure that when you're spelling out this word, you're actually not trying to memorize it, but you're sounding it out kind of. Though, like that, knowing that there's silent letters at the end. Because if you memorize it, then you're going to get through and thought mixed up because they have the same look to them. The only way to know the difference is to sound it out, because in through, you will hear the R, and in thought, you will hear the T. I see this as an English teacher. One of the most common mistakes is with anything with the word though, through, and thought. These words get mixed up all the time. So it's really important that when you're spelling it out, you're actually saying it and making sure that you're writing down the sounds that you hear, knowing that there is a silent aspect. O-U-G-H, silent. We actually don't hear the G sound in it or the H sound. Another thing to remember that can be kind of hard is this possessive. We have to have an apostrophe here to show that who possesses the struggles. The struggles belong to the friend. And also struggles is kind of hard. Split it up into two and say struggles to help you remember, because there's two things that happen really commonly with this word when you're trying to spell it. The first thing is that there's only one G instead of two. So if you split it up into two parts like this, struggles, and say it like that, then you're going to remember the two G's, because when you say it, you're saying the two G's. The other thing is it's important to say struggles to yourself. It's not really how it's pronounced, but it's good for spelling to say it like this, because then you're going to remember the order of the letters better, L-E-S, when you say it like that. Otherwise, you're probably going to want to spell it struggles, G-U-L-S, which is how we pronounce it in English, but that's not the correct spelling. So that's a tip for this one. Supportive has two P's as well, so you're going to want to split that up. Support, and then iv at the end to make it into an adjective. So split support like that and say it like that, so you are pronouncing two P's in either part of the word, to remember that there are two P's there. And encourage can be kind of hard as well. Encourage, like that. So split it up into encourage. And that, because this word is really hard because there's a lot of vowels in it, and vowels are the hardest thing in English. So if you split up into smaller parts, encouraged, then that will be easier for you. Let's look at the second sentence. And I'm just going to erase this note here because it's in the way. Number 2, his trustworthiness made it easy for others to rely on him, and he formed a strong fellowship with others. So we have two parts in this one as well. His trustworthiness made it easy for others to rely on him. That's a lot. So his trustworthiness is the subject. Made is the main verb. It's easy. And then we have this other part, for others to rely on him. We do have an infinitive in here. We have the word for. When we have the word for, we usually have a noun that follows other. And then rely on is a really common phrasal verb that we use in English. So these three words, to rely on, really common. Make sure that if you're using it in the same way as you're saying to depend on, that you're following these three words all together. You're not really splitting them up, because they flow really nicely. It's a 3-part phrasal verb. And then him at the end. Now we have a comma here because this word has a lot of, or the sentence has a lot of different parts. And actually the second thought, and he formed a strong fellowship with others. This part happens because of this part. So there is a connection between these two clauses, these two ideas. And so this just helps us split up and to know what thing is connected to the other thing. So again, you have to look at the full thoughts and ideas in this one and not only the grammar. Then we have he formed. This is in simple past, so this should be in simple past as well. A strong fellowship with others. So this preposition with and the noun shows us the relationship between others and fellowship. Fellowship is one word as well. Trustworthiness is actually kind of long, so you might have spelled that incorrectly. You should split that up. So trust, worthiness, that comes from the word trustworthy. It's an adjective. And then when we add, we've seen this before, when we're adding NESS, we're making it into a noun. Now, because of this, when we're adding NESS, we have to remove this Y and make it an I, which is why it's spelled like that. So split it up. I would say this is the best way to split it up. Trust in one bit, worth in another, E by itself, ness after that. Trustworthiness. When you're splitting it up like that, it seems kind of funny that there's only one letter here and 5 letters over here. But you're saying it as it's pronounced, which helps you with the syllable stress. So it's going to help you with not only your spelling, but your pronunciation. Plus, if you isolate I, you're really going to remember it easier and not trying to ask yourself, is it Y or is it I? I can't remember. You're looking at it by itself and not in its relation to the others parts of the word. Number 3, she felt an affectionate bond with her mentor who provided valuable mentorship throughout her career. Whoops. So for this one, she felt an affectionate bond. She is a subject, felt is a verb, an affectionate bond is the object. Then we have with her mentor. So this preposition is now going to look at this noun and make the connection between this bond and this noun. So this noun and this noun is connected with the word with, our preposition. Prepositions often connect two nouns and show us a relationship between two nouns, and that's exactly what it's doing here. Spelling wise, affectionate comes from the word affection. Affection always has an A when you're talking about showing love, showing kindness, things like that. It's being affectionate, and that is always with an A, not to be confused with the word affect with EFFECT. That's a noun, totally different. So make sure that you memorize that this is an A to start here. Affectionate. A lot of people probably would have put an E thinking about the word affect. That's a noun, not really related. Now, here we do have a comma. So we have this thing in the right here. It is a relative pronoun and it acts kind of like a conjunction in this way. Who provided valuable mentorship? It's telling us more about the mentor. So we do need to add a comma here to give us this new solid piece of information. When we start with the word who in the middle of something, who or which, we often, when it's in the middle of a sentence, will have a comma right before it. So when you see who in the middle of a sentence, oftentimes they're going to put a comma right before that. Especially when it comes after the SVO structure. And then who provided valuable mentorship throughout her career. So then we have this that kind of acts kind of like the subject, provided as the main verb, and valuable mentorship is the object throughout her career. It tells us more information. Now you have this word throughout. Throughout, this is why you can't memorize it, because if you try to memorize it, you will see that though and through look very similar. So now when I'm saying throughout, I can hear the R after the TH, through. So I have to make sure I add the R here. Otherwise, the spelling is going to be wrong. So you can't exactly memorize it. You have to kind of say it out loud to yourself to listen for those letters that are added. Through and then out. And throughout is actually one word here. Let's look at number 4. The community demonstrated solidarity during the crisis as neighbors supported one another with kindness. So here we have the word as after a lot of a long sentence that has the community, which is subject. Then we have verb. And then sorry, that's not an object. That is our verb. Solidarity is our object. And during the crisis shows more information. This is a conjunction that kind of shows us the time relationship. The crisis is the time or an event. And this is what's happening during that. So that's all going to come together. As neighbors supported one another with kindness. Now, this tells us a little bit more information. This is another conjunction of time. And as is sometimes also used like because in a way, but because this is so long, we have SVO, and then as neighbors supported one another with kindness, as neighbors, subject, supported verb, one another, object. Because we have clear SVO and SVO on either side, we should have a comma here before this conjunction as. So when you have clear SVO on one side, clear SVO on another side, make sure you have a comma. Let's look at the last one. While the acquaintance was friendly, it lacked trustworthiness and empathy. So for this one, we start with the word while, which is a conjunction. So we have our conjunction here. When we have a conjunction like this, then we see our subject, verb, object is trustworthiness and empathy. We have this in the middle, and here we start with while. So this is showing us that this is a dependent clause because we're starting with the word while here. And so because we're starting with a dependent, we got to put a comma before the next SVO starts. So before the word it, we put a comma to separate the two things. That's a signal here that when we start with a conjunction, this is probably going to be a dependent clause. Then we have SVO. So before the SVO starts, we put our comma that signals that this is a new clause starting. Trustworthiness is another like long word that we looked at. You're going to want to split it up the same way as we did up in sentence number 2. Acquaintance is a hard word too. You should split it up AC, wane, like that, tense, like that. So this one, QU makes a qu sound, AINT, acquaintance, like that, acquaintance. So split it up like this, just to kind of sound it out. Otherwise, this C gets forgotten because people think that the Q makes a C sound, but there's actually 2 of these words together. So if you split this up like this, then you're going to remember the C and remember the QU right after. Another thing that you might have noticed is neighbors here is spelled with a U. I'm located in Canada, but if you are more familiar with American spelling, then you probably didn't put a U, and that's correct as well. So if you didn't put a U there, your spelling is correct too. You're just spelling it the American way. So keep that in mind as well. IELTS accepts American spelling. IELTS accepts British spelling. Just make sure that you're spelling it consistently throughout. Then it's going to be accepted. So that's kind of a breakdown of some of the spelling tips and some of the grammar that you see in these sentences and how the grammar is used. You're also going to see some bold words. These are the vocabulary words that we're focusing on this week for this exercise. So here are vocabulary words. We have the words empathy, trustworthy, affectionate, supportive, solidarity, acquaintance, fellowship, mentorship. Make sure you know how to spell these words. Make sure you know what they mean and how they're used in each sentence. Make sure you're able to use them in written sentences and in verbal sentences or oral sentences. And you're able to use the correct vocabulary that's related to these words. So other synonyms or antonyms as well. And that you're able to use them in a way that you can use different word forms. So make sure, like, for example, trustworthy is an adjective, trustworthiness is a noun that we saw today. So make sure you know the different word forms and how to use the different grammar for the different word forms. So besides that, We are all finished for today. Thank you so much for watching. Please come again tomorrow to see some different sentences with the same words and different vocabulary, maybe different word forms. And you're also going to see different explanations for different grammar. So stay tuned for that. I hope to see you again next time. Take care. Bye.